I'm Steve Johnson, News Director for theDove TV. Check out our other videos and visit our website at thedove.us. Thanks. Welcome back to Focus Today, and we have a guy who's been here numerous times before. I think the first time I met you was when Love Song first came to town, and your church sponsored that group to sing. And it was a great concert. It was far better than I ever thought, and I give you all the credit for making it that way.
Oh, no, it was because of Love Song and having that reunion tour come to Grants Pass. It was great. It was awesome. Thank you for that.
Denny Stahl is with us. He's the pastor, senior pastor at Calvary Chapel in Grants Pass. And I don't know if you knew this, and I didn't until Denny reminded me. This is the 70th anniversary of the war concentration camps in World War II being freed. I mean, this is quite a remembrance occasion, and in fact, you've got Holocaust Remembrance Day that is actually going to be remembered for a few days coming up. And I kind of want to take this apart as far as what you're going to be having at another place called the Journey Church and all of that. Before we get into the specifics of that happening this Wednesday through Sunday, I think for a lot of people who are younger, they probably are saying, what are you talking about, this Holocaust thing? It is amazing how, for some of us, we know what happened in World War II. We've had guests on here who've gone through the concentration camps, whether it's Auschwitz, Birkenau, Dachau, any of the other that were just terrible. And yet, it is easy to forget all of that. And I guess with Holocaust Remembrance Day, you're wanting to put this in the minds of people who knew about it and people who don't, right?
And that's exactly right, Steve. One of the things that's so important and incumbent upon all of us is to never forget. Forget the terrible consequences of the final solution. When Adolf Hitler determined that his regime, the Nazi regime, was going to solve the problems of Europe, the final solution was the annihilation of every Jewish person in Europe. Now, he was highly successful. 6 million men, women, and children, 1 million children slaughtered, either in the assassination corps or in the death camps of Nazi Germany. And you're exactly right. 70 years ago this week, the Allied forces liberated many of the concentration camps, the death camps of Nazi Germany. And so Holocaust Remembrance Day, which begins Wednesday night at sundown and goes to Thursday night at sundown, is an annual event that's designed to really keep this memory in the front of people's awareness, so that it'll never happen again.
Okay, and so that's Wednesday night to Thursday night, that 24-hour period. You know, I remember seeing the footage of the video when some of the soldiers who freed some of those concentration camps, they were blown away by what they saw. And the townspeople, I know a lot of them were forced to have to go through so they could see what was happening in their own backyard. And when you look at them going in, it's one view of them. Coming out, you can see how they are just broken. And whether they knew about it or not is a whole different issue that way. But why is this so important for you to be a part of this Remembrance Day? Do you think we could forget about it?
Well, I definitely do. As the Oregon State Director for Christians United for Israel, now with 2.2 million members, the largest organization of its kind,
really? Wow.
We are a group of Christians who want to work in concert with our Jewish friends to kind of make sure that we never fall into the kind of trap that the church in Germany fell into. Christians there, there's stories, Steve, that are just horrible. Churches literally turning up the volume of their pipe organ as the boxcars were going past on their way, carrying Jewish men, women, and children to the death camps.
Really? And that was because they knew what was going on
there?
Well,
they knew what was going on. They had, although not probably a personal knowledge, an actual personal knowledge of what was happening, the terrible things that were going on, but they were aware that something was going on.
Yeah.
And in fact, you bring up a point. When the Allied forces began to liberate the concentration camps, the Russians came to Auschwitz and liberated the people that were held there. The Americans came to several other of the camps. It's interesting, General Eisenhower, Omar Bradley, and Patton came to one of those camps, and it was so so terrifying to them, so terribly graphic. We're told in the accounts that Patton couldn't even go into the buildings because he was so affected by what he was seeing.
Wow.
And but thank God that General Eisenhower had the foresight to send a communique to Harry Truman, the President of the United States at that time, and request reporters and filmmakers be sent to these camps to record what they were seeing with their own eyes so that the world would never forget. Because Eisenhower had this sense that this is something we'd want to forget. We would want to sweep this under the rug and never remember what terrible things had happened.
Well, and it reminds me of Elie Wiesel as, after World War II, the Nazi hunter, continuing that theme to keep us remembering what happened there. But I suppose the problem that you're saying is that as one generation leaves and another one comes on to play, we may kind of forget about that. Do you find there are kids, younger people, who don't really know what you're talking about when you refer to this?
Well, of course, because what happens is that's not their firsthand experience. They weren't around. I mean, I wasn't even around when the camps were liberated, so although it was fresh in our thinking, at some point that begins to diminish over time. And so we have a whole generation or more of generations who don't have firsthand experience of hearing the accounts of what happened. Yeah. Holocaust survivors are, the average age of the Holocaust survivor in Israel is over 83 years old. We recently had, as you know, Irving Roth here, who was a survivor of Auschwitz. And unfortunately, we're losing these people who can tell us firsthand exactly what happened. They're dying off.
And there's still people who say this didn't happen.
Oh, and that's, you bring up another great point, Steve. What's happening is there is a whole narrative out there that claims this never happened, that is somehow a figment of propaganda that's pro-Jewish, that created this story about the terrible things that happened. And that's why it's so incumbent upon us to tell the facts of the matter. Okay,
and I want to talk a little bit more about this. Let's mention, though, for those who maybe won't be able to be here a little bit later on, what is happening this Thursday at 7 p.m. It's at the Journey Church, right? What are you going to be having there?
We're going to do two events, one in Grants Pass on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at Calvary Chapel, and then we'll do the same event here in Medford at the Journey Church at 7 o'clock on Thursday night, kind of bookending the day. And the title of our presentation is Never Again, really reminding people of the facts of the matter and, quite frankly, the state of anti-Semitism in the world today, which is, quite frankly, disturbing to me.
Wow. And I do want to talk about that. So Wednesday night in Grants Pass at your church at
7 o'clock.
Okay. And then at the Journey Church, 7 o'clock on Thursday night, right?
Yes, exactly right.
Okay. You mentioned how you don't want this to happen again. You obviously have some concerns that it could, and perhaps what we're seeing on the world front right now is indicating that?
You know, what's amazing to me, Steve, is that, yes, not only am I afraid that this could possibly happen again, but I just downloaded an article from the Times of Israel this morning. The headline says almost half of Israelis say another Holocaust is possible. A survey was done there, and nearly half of the population in Israel, they live in a pretty tough neighborhood, and it's growing worse by the moment. And they have a very personal sense that what happened to their ancestors, their grandfathers and grandmothers, could happen to them.
And that is going, I suppose the poll is taken from younger generations too, as well as the
No, this is a poll that was taken across the board.
The whole board.
Yes. Yeah. And what's amazing is the Holocaust survivors, and there's nearly, I think the article said that there are nearly 45,000 Holocaust survivors who are Israeli citizens today. And they see signs in the world today that remind them of what led up to the final solution, what led up to the Holocaust. And so they're drawing parallels to what they see in current events to what happened back in the 1930s and 40s.
Well, elaborate a little bit on that. The anti-Semitism, I think those of us who are in the news industry are surprised to see the level of it's not anything based on anything other than the person is Jewish. And I've been amazed at that, because I thought that we had been able to get beyond that kind of a hurdle. But it looks like it's coming back again. Are you seeing more signs of increased anti-Semitism, maybe here in the United States even?
Yes, it's erupting in Europe. We recently saw that in the events that took place in Paris, targeting people that were at the Jewish deli, in Paris. And sadly, what we're seeing in the United States is some new points of origin of anti-Semitism. With the BDS movement, the boycott, divest, and sanction movement is starting to gain a consensus even in Christian circles. There are
now
people,
describe that a little bit, what that's all about.
The boycott, divest, and sanction movement was a movement that was started to oppose Israel. And it was started by a Palestinian who truly wanted to use this propaganda tool to convince people outside of Israel that the crimes, as he described them, of Israel being an apartheid state, Israel being occupiers of Palestinian territories, that the weapons in the hands of those people that were had some kind of economic tie with Israel should boycott, divest themselves of companies that invest in Israel, and then sanction Israel to put economic pressure on Israel to capitulate to Palestinian demands.
And you're seeing this as a growing trend, perhaps, more?
Sadly, there are some Christian leaders in America who are championing the boycott, divest, and sanction movement, and several denominations in America have voted to join the BDS movement.
Do you think that it's based on the fact that they're not as familiar as they should be with the scenario playing out in the world, or are they fully aware of this and have decided?
No, I believe that they're unfortunately their information is secondhand, and they're buying into a narrative which has an agenda, and the agenda is to isolate Israel for its utter destruction, because the people that started this movement, that is their ultimate goal. Isn't to have peace with the Israelis, but to truly see them removed from the land.
Now, you were talking about connections that had taken place in World War II and what's being seen now. I suppose this is a more aggressive way of the church responding, similar to how the church didn't respond and looked away and didn't really react in a lot of cases, at least in Germany. So, in a way, it's having a similar effect, except this is a little bit more aggressive by saying, let's boycott them rather than ignore them, right? I mean, that can have a severe impact too.
The kind of the vitriol that was so apparent in Germany, very, very few churches participated in that hatred of the Jews, but they stood on the sidelines and watched it happen.
And
but what's sad about this movement around the world, in the Western world, in Europe, in Canada, in the United States, is that it's based upon a propaganda machine rather than the facts of the matter. For instance, one of the constant accusations that's leveled against Israel is that they're an apartheid state.
Yeah, I've heard that kind of cycling through every now and then.
Yeah, and of course an apartheid state means that the minority is ignored or persecuted. But I've been to Israel, Steve, and I've seen there are Arab citizens in Israel. There are Jewish citizens. There are Christians. In fact, the safest place for Muslims, Christians, and Jews and non-believers in the Middle East is Israel. Abu Tameh, who's a correspondent for the Jerusalem Post, a Muslim man whose mother lives in Ramallah, he makes that journey by his own account across the checkpoints every day to go visit mom. Her number one wish in life is to immigrate one day to Israel, because her prospects for prosperity, peace, and safety and security are greater in Israel than they are in the West Bank.
Wow. We're talking with Pastor Denny Stahl, senior pastor at Calvary Chapel in Grants Pass, and there is a Remembrance Day in Grants Pass on Wednesday and another one on Thursday night in Medford, and we're going to talk more about this Holocaust Remembrance Day coming up this week. So keep it tuned right here. We'll be back with Pastor Denny Stahl in about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Focus Today. Our guest is Pastor Denny Stahl with Calvary Chapel in Grants Pass, and there's a big event happening on Wednesday and Thursday. This is the week that is a 70th anniversary of remembrance of the freeing of the concentration camps in Germany. So it's not just a historic thing. There are still those who are alive telling the story, wanting to make sure that we don't forget what happened 70 years ago now. That's really pretty amazing. Now, Denny, of course, you're the organizer for the Standing with Israel event here in the state, aren't you?
I'm the Oregon State Director for Christians United for Israel. I've been doing that for a number of years, working with this wonderful organization that has grown just exponentially.
And why did you get involved?
That's a great question. I've been to Israel a number of times, have many Jewish friends, and my wife, interestingly enough, was at a conference in Washington, D.C. with me when she volunteered to join this organization called Daughters for Zion, which is the prayer network for Christians United for Israel. Because she signed up to be an intercessor praying for the peace of Jerusalem and for the Jewish people and the Jewish state, we got an invitation some years ago to a pastor's luncheon in Eugene, Oregon, and Randy Neal, the Western Regional Coordinator, brought Bentzi Gruber, who's a colonel in the IDF. He oversees the armored division in South Israel, Gaza. Wow. And so we went to the pastor's luncheon, and I was just amazed at the work that Christians United for Israel was doing. And then I subsequently had an opportunity to go with other pastors from the West Coast on a pastor's study tour with CUFI to Israel, and just found out that Oregon needed some help, and so Randy asked me to do the work, and we've been partnering ever since and doing great things here in the state of Oregon.
Well, let's talk about these two events, and I'll mention them again a little bit later on as well. The first one you have is going to be Wednesday night. This is going to be at your church, is that right? Calvary Chapel in Grants Pass. What time is it?
It's 7 o'clock on Wednesday evening.
What can people expect when they go to that remembrance service?
Never Again is a presentation which will unpack the facts of the Holocaust, but more importantly, the things that led up to the Holocaust. I'll never forget, Steve, when my wife and I were leading a group of Israel and we toured the Yad Vashem on the outskirts of Jerusalem for the very first time.
And what is that? Describe
and Yad
that.
Vashem is the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Jerusalem. There is a particular building that was built by a donation from a family in Southern California called the Hall of Mirrors, the Hall of Glass, Hall of Light. And we walk into this building. It's actually like a bunker. You actually go underground. And you start to kind of zigzag your way through a dark area, and there are names being read in different languages. And as you enter in, there are two candles that are being mirrored by countless numbers of mirrors. So as you walk through this kind of meandering pathway, you see points of lights all around you. These two single candles being replicated by mirrors, and what you're hearing is the names read of the 1 million children that were gassed and killed during the Holocaust. 1 million children.
Wow. And the impact, how was that impactful for you? Just to realize that it wasn't just adults, but it was...
To realize that it wasn't just targeted. It was Hitler's goal was to literally eliminate not only the Jews, but the gypsies, the disabled, the mentally deficient. His idea of supremacy, birthed by my estimation by his adherence to the theory of evolution and Darwinism, he really believed that the Aryan race was going to survive because they were the fittest. And so his vitriol was directed not only at the Jews, but everyone who didn't live up to the particular standard that he believed was superior. And so as you walk through that hall, I mean, the tears were just coming down our faces, and I recognized and realized that something had to be done. Something needed to be done to make sure that something like this never happened again.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, you were saying that there's a trend that you're seeing with more people who are seemingly anti-Zionist, even among Christian communities, which is a bit disturbing. And I think we've seen
and part of it is born by
like
ignorance, just not knowing the facts of the matter.
Yeah.
And so this presentation on Wednesday and Thursday night is going to be designed to give people accurate facts about the Holocaust, and then also facts about what led up to it, so that they on their own part will be able to recognize the threats that are current.
Well, you know, this kind of anti-Semitism starts with one person and goes to the next person. Let's hope that it can go the opposite direction too. What would you say one person can do to help go up against what might be a trend that we're seeing?
It's a great question, and one I'm sure your audience is wondering about. First, get the facts. Attend our meetings and get an opportunity to really see what the facts of the matter are. Then, as you educate yourself, I think the next step, Steve, would be to, in your own circle of influence, start a dialogue. We're not asking people to lead or to give money or to do anything like that. We're simply wanting them, in their own circle of influence, to start asking questions and create a dialogue, because I think it's through dialogue that truly understanding can be developed. In his benchmark book, Erwin Lutzer, the pastor of Moody Bible Church in Chicago, Illinois, When a Nation Forgets God, 7 Lessons We Must Learn from Nazi Germany, he literally talks about all of the steps that Hitler took. The Holocaust was the end game. It was the result of dumbing down the population, challenging the pastors in Germany. Of course, you know, the Lutheran pastors in Germany, a state-run church, were actually paid by the state. They didn't rely upon offerings from their local congregations. They were paid by the state. And he made a statement. He thought, for the sake of their lousy little salaries, that's his words, they'll capitulate to our demands. But a few men, as you know, stood up against that kind of bullying. Bonhoeffer, Niemöller, and others. Yeah. And I love what my friend Pastor Jim Garlow in California says. It's time for pastors to stop talking about Dietrich Bonhoeffer and be Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Wow. Well, that's pretty interesting. Maybe this is a first step for people to kind of be able to get mobilized with your 2 events that are going on. Let's mention them again. It'll be this Wednesday night, right, at your church. What is the address?
We're at 269 West Harbeck Road in Grants Pass, right across the street from South Middle School. Okay,
and that's Calvary Chapel in Grants Pass. Again, that starts at what time, 7 p.m.?
7 o'clock.
Is that right? And then you're going
to... it's free and open to the public.
Great. The Journey Church, then, in Medford the next night, right?
The Journey Church is on Highway 99. It's 2399 South Pacific Highway here in Medford, and again, that event is also open to the public and free. And we'll have a question and answer session at the end, which will allow all who attend to perhaps unpack some of their concerns and some of their questions.
I know you're one of the speakers. Do you have others who are going to be joining you on stage?
No, I'm going to be the one that's
going to be the shell answer man. Huh?
Hopefully, I'm going to be the spokesperson, at least on that evening.
Do you hope that something comes out of this that might be a more proactive group? Is that what you're hoping for?
Well, we'll give opportunity for people who attend to consider joining Christians United for Israel. What we've discovered with that organization is all of a sudden our one voice becomes part of a much larger voice, 2.2 million members now. And of course, our annual DC Summit is coming up in Washington, D.C. in July. We will be once again a voice in Washington, D.C., visiting our senators, our representatives, and advocating for Israel.
If people want to check out a website, where can they go to get more information?
The best place to go is, can I suggest 2? One would be our website, calvarygp.com. That's CALVARYGP, as in GrantsPass.com. Or Christians United for Israel's website, which is CUFI.org. Okay,
great. Pastor Denny Stahl, Senior Pastor at Calvary Chapel, Grants Pass, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for joining us for Focus Today.